Well, healthcare continues to make headlines in the aftermath of the Supreme Court decision concerning Obamacare. We'll get some thoughts on that issue and many others from a doctor's perspective. It all starts right now.
From TV6, this is The Ryan Report. Now, here's your host, Don Ryan.
Well, Dr. Ryan Edwards is our guest this morning. Dr. Edwards is a general surgeon and is part of the Surgical Associates of Marquette Group. He attended the medical school at Tulane University in New Orleans and did his residency at the Detroit Medical Center. Pleased you could join us today. Thanks for joining us, Doctor.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
I want to learn more about you, but first of all, you know, there's so much in the news these days about health care and Obamacare. I don't want to get you into the political discussion, but how is that affecting you as a doctor, as a surgeon, the changes that have come about as a result of the government becoming more involved in health care?
Well, there's a lot more regulation and protocolized type medicine. I don't know if that specifically came out of Obamacare, but it kind of goes along the theme of since they're a higher payer source now, they have some control over actually how we deliver medical care, and that can be frustrating when there's certain standards that are going to be publicly reported that you may not necessarily think is the correct thing for an individual patient. With regard to how it's affected my practice, I'm still doing the same thing as I was before Obamacare was instituted, the same number of cases, same case mix. I think it impacts the patients a little bit more with regard to their increase in co-pays.
Okay.
Some of the specialties around Marquette have seen a significant reduction in the number of patients they're seeing through their office because it's considered more elective. Patients have higher co-pays and they can't pay to have their sinus surgery that they would have been able to several years ago and not pay so much out of pocket. So the volume of certain types of surgeries has significantly gone down.
So it probably has a different impact depending on where you are in the medical profession.
Each specialty has had a different impact for sure. I'm sure the family practices that are primarily office-based have really seen a bigger change than I have. Probably about half my practice is emergency and trauma surgery. So the politics and the insurance doesn't necessarily affect the fact that people are involved in trauma and need emergency surgery. Reimbursement has changed a little bit, but you just got to play the game to learn where and how you can get that revenue coming in to keep your business running, because a surgical practice is a business. We have a lot of employees. We provide benefits, so the vast majority of money coming in goes to support the practice.
You know, looking forward, Obamacare is probably here to stay. Perhaps there could be some modifications going forward. Anything you would suggest if you had that option?
Less regulation.
Less regulation.
Less rules to follow. There's a huge push for documentation. I spend a lot of my time at work not doing surgery and not taking care of patients. A lot of it is just making sure you have appropriate documentation. We have staff at the hospital that oversees our documentation, and they will call us and tell us we need to do something different, or there's a piece of paper we didn't fill out, things like that. So that gets to be a little bit onerous when you're trying to concentrate on actually taking care of people.
Let's talk a little more about you. You went to Tulane. Were you from the New Orleans area?
No, I'm from Southeast Michigan. I grew up in South Lyon, Michigan. And I had an opportunity, to really go wherever I wanted to for college. And I decided to go south and just try a different part of the country. So I went to New Orleans for undergrad at Tulane, and then ended up staying there for medical school. So I lived there for about 8 years.
You get to enjoy what New Orleans has to offer?
I did. By the end of my 8 years, though, I couldn't wait to get out of there. It was really fun as a college student. And, as a medical student, right, you're a lot more focused on your studies than the fun times like Mardi Gras and the French Quarter. And then when I was down there when Hurricane Andrew came through, and our house was flooded twice in 2 days, and the crime down there was horrible. So I couldn't wait to get out of there, and I knew the big one was coming. After Andrew hit, I was like, if something hit New Orleans straight on, it was going to be an absolute mess, and I got out of there in time before Katrina.
You went to your residency at the Detroit Medical Center?
That's correct. They're affiliated with Wayne State University. And the Detroit Medical Center, of all the residencies, not only is at Detroit Receiving Hospital downtown, but Harper Hospital is connected to it, Children's Hospital, the Detroit VA's a block away, and then we also rotated through a little bit at Hutzel Hospital as well as Sinai Grace Hospital. Okay. So there was a lot of different hospitals that residents rotate through.
How did you wind up in Marquette?
Well, I was in a clinic with one of my mentors, Dr. Ledgerwood, and we were just, I was a third year, and we were just talking about what my future was, where I might want, what I might want to do, and where I'd want to go. And I mentioned that I heard there was a group in Marquette that might be looking for someone. And Dr. Ledgerwood also mentored Dr. Lewis and Dr. Kaczynski, who were up here at that time. Okay. So she picked up the phone right in the middle of the clinic and called Dr. Lewis and handed me the phone. And Larry and I had a very good discussion, and then I ended up coming up and visiting, and it was actually very quick and easy. They offered me the job really based on her recommendation that I was a good guy. That's what she said. So I took the job, and I've been here ever since for the last 13 years now.
On your firm's website, I noticed a picture of you, maybe in waders, but at least holding a large fish. Is fishing something you've done?
A high school buddy of mine has a guide service in Baldwin, Michigan, and I go there once or twice a year, and with him and book him for a guided fishing tour. And there's a couple pictures of me with some rainbow trout and maybe some salmon there too, because he does big lake and river fishing. And so, yeah, I like to fish. I don't get much time to get out and do it. Usually I book a trip with him, and he knows how to catch fish. I don't.
And I think that is one of the appeal to doctors potentially coming here. They have to enjoy that outdoor life.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, whenever we talk to a new prospect that might want to come up here, that they have to understand that you have to enjoy outdoor activities here. You have to like winter, you know, snowshoeing, skiing, right. You know, whatever. You got to find something to do in winter outside, or else you'll go stir crazy.
Okay. Got a lot more questions for you. We'll get back with more questions for Dr. Edwards after we take this break. Our guest this morning is Dr. Ryan Edwards, talking about a lot of healthcare issues. Let's talk about your job as a surgeon. What kind of cases typically are you dealing with?
Well, I'm referred to as a general surgeon. So we are really have a broad-based training in lots of different areas of surgery. So in the past, general surgeons in the community would do a lot of things, even gynecology and orthopedic stuff and urology. That's more specialized today. Today, general surgeons, when they come out of residency, they can go into a general surgery practice, which basically means you can do some endocrine stuff, so in the neck, like thyroids and parathyroids, tracheostomies. Really, there's not many general surgeons doing general chest operations like lungs and esophagus. That's more specialized now for cardiothoracic. But just about anything in the belly: liver, stomach, spleen, colon, small intestine, you know, bowel obstructions, hernias, breast biopsies, gallbladder surgery. Those would be some of the more common. Also, we do endoscopy procedures. Some of us in the group do, not all of us, but most general surgeons are trained in colonoscopy and upper endoscopy, which in smaller hospitals is the vast majority of their volume of cases would be endoscopic procedures. Some general surgeons specialize, and after residency they'll go into a fellowship and learn about laparoscopic, or they'll become a liver surgeon, you know, something very super specialized. Those would be general surgeons that are more in the urban institutions where they have need for that.
In a typical day, how many different surgeries might you do?
Oh, you know, I mean, a high volume day would be 10 or 12
Really?
operations.
Wow.
And our schedule is, you know, we have OR days, we have office days. So when I'm in the office, I wouldn't do any surgery, but you know, I may see 25 to 50 patients in the office. We also take calls, so we do a lot of emergency surgery. Probably 40%, maybe even a little more of our practice is actually emergency operations, typically in the middle of the night, and trauma care. But other than that, you know, a normal day for me, you know, starts at 7:30, and I'm usually finished with my elective surgeries by 3 o'clock or so.
You know, I'm thinking as we're speaking, you know, for so many of these people, surgery is probably one of the most traumatic events in their life.
Yes.
And yet you may be going in that operating room doing 10 surgeries a day. How do you cope with that personally?
Well, training has a lot to do with it. Now, things have changed in residency training with the 80-hour work week restrictions for residents. When I was a resident, we didn't have restrictions. But you learn in residency, being up all night long and having a full schedule the next day, how to get sleep, how to keep yourself nourished and keep going. But certainly, especially as you get older, you hit a wall at some point. You know, if you've been up all night and then you have other stuff to do, you'll eventually hit a wall. My longest day as a resident was a 62-hour day. That was not fun. I was able to get an hour here sleep, an hour there sleep. But there's 5 partners in our group, and we help each other out when situations come to that. And there's been once or twice where I was up all night long and I had to cancel my cases or my office the next day because I was just completely exhausted. And I shouldn't be in there operating if I'm completely exhausted.
Right.
So.
You say they're changing some of the training procedures too, or residency procedures,
right,
so that they're not overworking these residents?
Right. In 2005, it became regulation. All residency programs had an 80-hour work week restriction for the residents, and the residents have to log how much they're working, as well as if they do a 24-hour call period, they're allowed, I think it's 8 hours of rest time. When I was a resident, you'd do 24 hours, and if you had work to do, you just kept working until you were done. Now they have to have rest time. The goal of that was to improve education and improve test scores, as well as reduce complications, because sleep-deprived residents in the middle of the night, the thought was they might be more prone to make mistakes. That actually has not panned out, as we look at the stats. Test scores have actually gone down, complication rates have not changed. However, they will never reverse the 80-hour restriction. Right. It's here to stay.
I assume a number of your cases must involve cancer, and you're the vice chairman of the cancer committee at UP Health System Marquette.
That's correct. Yeah.
And you've recently been, not you, but the program there has recently received some recertification. Tell us about that.
Right. You know, probably the 2 most common cancers that we deal with in our practice would be colon and rectal or breast. There are some other rare cancers we deal with, but you know, anything in those organs I mentioned, if there's cancer, we do that surgery also. Breast cancer is probably the highest volume of cancer, and 3 years ago we were certified as a breast center of excellence by the National Accreditation Program for Breast Centers. We just had our 3-year review a few weeks ago to be recertified, and we passed, and so we're recertified again. Not only UP Health System Marquette, but UP Health System Bell is also certified as a center of excellence. The Bell side has their review coming up in January.
Okay, and what does that mean?
It's an outside third-party reviewer. They come in and they review the entire aspect of your breast program, from screening all the way to surgery, as well as chemotherapy, complications of chemotherapy, how we run our program. And there's certain bullet points that you have to achieve every year, such as if a woman's having surgery for breast cancer, we would like to achieve at least a 50% of breast-conserving surgery, which means lumpectomy, not removing the entire breast. So that's a standard they want us to achieve. So there's certain standards that you need to reach in how your program runs, and then they will certify you and say that you are at the top of the game.
So mostly it provides some assurances for people who are seeking that care.
Right. Yep.
This is probably a good time to throw in a reminder that prevention is important too, isn't it? Particularly in those 2 cases of
absolutely
prevention or early diagnosis.
Right, right. Screening. You know, there's been stuff in the news about changing when women get their first mammogram from, you know, a baseline at between 40 and 45 to go up above 50 as the first time. I see a lot of women in their 40s that have breast cancer. I'm a proponent of doing screening procedures earlier. Same with colorectal cancer. Doing colonoscopies, going in and getting your colonoscopy every 5 to 10 years or whatever the endoscopist thinks you should have done will reduce your risk of getting colon cancer significantly. When I do colonoscopies at Bell Hospital, I'd say 60 to 70% of the patients I do a colonoscopy on, I end up removing a polyp. And if that's left behind, there's a chance.
Right.
No guarantee, but there's a chance that that polyp would eventually transform into a cancer.
So early diagnosis is very important.
Yes.
Right now it's important we take a break. I'll be back with more with Dr. Edwards after we take this break. We're talking with Marquette surgeon Dr. Ryan Edwards. We were talking about certification at UP Health System Marquette. That's moving forward on the trauma center as well, I guess, the recertification.
That's correct. Traumas, about, I don't know, maybe 30 or 40 years ago, somewhere in that range, the American College of Surgeons started to evaluate and designate major urban hospitals as levels of trauma center based on what they can provide. Level 1 meaning they can provide every service that's needed, including burn care and neurosurgery. Also, level 1 centers are teaching institutions. They usually have residency programs. Detroit Receiving Hospital was the first level 1 designated trauma center in the state of Michigan. Now there are several centers that are designated. Marquette is a level 2 trauma center, which means that we basically provide 98 to 99% of what a level 1 can provide, but we don't have a residency program. Some of our things we don't have in Marquette is such as burn care. We can do the initial care, but they will be transferred to a burn center because we don't have a burn center. Certain pediatric trauma issues like head injuries may go to a children's hospital, but we basically provide all of the rest of the care. And the American College of Surgeons used to do all the designating, but now the states are getting involved in creating state trauma systems. Michigan recently passed a law to create a state trauma system where every single hospital will have to be designated a certain level. And there's 1, 2, 3, and 4. 4 means you really don't even have a surgeon available. It'd just be really a walk-in center type situation. Level 3s have surgeons available, but they don't have the extra care, the neurosurgery, the cardiothoracic, maybe they're short on orthopedic surgery. Level 2 provides everything. And at ours, we were just recertified again as a level 2 by the American College of Surgeons. And we are we're Region 8, the Upper Peninsula, and UP Health System Marquette is the hub for Region 8. So we are the referral center for all the level 3s and level 4s in the Upper Peninsula. We have a helicopter now. That's a new thing to get patients from the scene to the hospital quicker.
You know, when this first happened, when it first got this designation, you know, I thought, well, okay, this is just a fancy name for the emergency room, and did have a family experience which demonstrated it certainly is not. So this really is critically important in emergency situations. I also live near the current hospital, and I see that helicopter coming in very frequently. You know, it's quite surprising.
Yeah, and the helicopter not only brings in trauma and injured patients, but also medically ill patients that need to be brought in.
We started out talking about government involvement in healthcare. We don't have much time left, but is it affecting people going into the practice of medicine?
I think so. It's much more onerous now to be a physician than it used to be because of the government involvement. But there's still a lot of high qualified trainees coming out, but there's going to be some shortages. There's definitely going to be shortages, especially, you know, I follow general surgery. There's going to be shortages in general surgeons in communities such as ours in the very near future because of the baby boomers retiring. They're getting to that age where they're retiring out and it's just not getting filled. A lot of the residents are going into fellowship training to do more specialized stuff as opposed to a community practice. Okay. So it's hard to recruit.
And especially when you have winters like we have, you have to find people who love living in this part of the country.
Yeah.
So is there anything we can do to improve this situation?
Well, you know, the residencies are trying to improve it and, you know, trying to add spots and things like that. But when I was a resident, all the surgery residency spots were filled by American medical school graduates. And now we're at about 30 to 40% are actually being filled by foreign medical graduates. So there's definitely less people going into my type of practice, and there's going to be a shortage.
Unfortunately, I've probably only covered half the questions I have on these sheets of paper. Thanks very much for coming in today to be part of the show.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Okay. We'll be back with some other thoughts after we take this break. You know, one day I contacted a company to find out more about a service they offered. The person who answered the phone thanked me for calling and said that one of their salespeople would get back to me in a little while. I sat by the phone for 3 days before they returned the call. Actually, I didn't sit by the phone for 3 days, but I did stay close to the phone for an hour or two, expecting a call in a little while. The call didn't come until 3 days later. So when I finally got to speak with the salesperson and obtained most of the information I needed, I finally asked, "So how long will this take?" His response was, "It will take a while." A while? Would that be a short while or a long while? The salesman said, "Don't worry about it. It should only take a short while before we can get started." So there you are. Isn't that a relief? I can walk away knowing it should only take a short while. But the fact is, I really haven't learned anything from that exchange. The problem is there is no accepted measurement of a while. We all have our own definition of how long a while is, and it can also depend on the circumstances. If you're standing on someone's front porch and they tell you you'll be out to join them in a short while, you can probably expect to see them in a few minutes. So a short while in that case would be 3 or 4 minutes. On the other hand, if you bring your lawnmower into a busy repair shop and they tell you it should be ready in a short while, you pretty well know they're not talking about minutes, maybe not even days. If you're a kid and you ask your parents if you can do something and they tell you after a while, you've probably come to learn this sometimes means never. The dictionary defines a while as a period of time or an interval, nothing very specific. If you tell me a minute, an hour, a day, a week, or even a month, I understand. But a while, turns out that really means nothing. So the next time someone tells you they'll do something in a while, tell them you'll have to think about it. And when they ask how soon can you let us know, just tell them you'll get back to them in a while. And I'll be back in a little while. That's our show for this Sunday morning. Thanks for choosing to spend this time with us. I hope you enjoyed it. Before we go, I want to remind you that each week this show is also available on the internet, and you can check it out if you go to uppermichigansource.com. The latest version should appear at about noon on Mondays. And if you have some thoughts you want to share with us, our email address is theryanreport@chesstv.com. Drop us a line. I'd like to hear your thoughts. Thanks to Dr. Ryan Edwards for joining us this morning. We're pleased to get his thoughts on some important health care issues in the news today. Looks like the Today Show is anxious to get started, so we'll get out of the way. Enjoy the rest of your weekend and join us next Sunday morning.